The bioluminescent fungi pulsed with an eerie blue light, casting long shadows across the jungle floor. Kalen crouched behind the massive trunk of an ancient tree, its bark glowing a faint amber. He remained perfectly still, controlling his breathing as he had been trained to do decades ago. 15 days. She had been tracking him for 15 days across the treacherous terrain of Xylos, and he had to admit, she was good. Better than most who had tried to kill him. Xylos was unlike any other planet in the sector, a primordial world of dense alien jungles and bizarre wildlife, where the vegetation itself seemed alive with bioluminescent energy. By night, the forest transformed into a sea of neon colors, purple fronds, blue lichens, yellow flowering vines that seemed to reach out and caress anything that passed by. It was beautiful in the way that deadly things often are. Kalen had chosen this world precisely for its dangers. Anyone hunting him would be at a disadvantage here, needing to navigate not only his traps, but also the planet's natural hazards. The sudden magnetic storms that disrupted electronics, the carnivorous flora that could dissolve a human in hours, the indigenous predators that moved like shadows between the trees. He had spent 3 months learning Xylos' rhythms, becoming one with its hostile ecosystem. But his pursuer had adapted quickly. He checked his makeshift perimeter sensors again. Thin filaments stretched between trees, primitive but effective. 2 had been triggered in the northwestern quadrant, exactly where he'd expected. She was moving closer, but taking her time, methodical. Professional. Kayla knew her name, Nyx. Her reputation preceded her. An elite assassin from the Order of the Silent Blade, an ancient guild whose loyalty was only to the highest bidder. The corporation that wanted him dead had clearly spared no expense. What they were paying her to retrieve from him was worth far more than the bounty on his head. The data, crystal secured in a subcutaneous pocket near his collarbone, contained evidence of atrocities that would bring down empires if revealed. Kalen had once been their most effective operative, until he discovered the truth about who he really served. Now he was a ghost hunted across the stars. He'd left subtle signs for her to follow, guiding her toward this location, a clearing near the ancient ruins that dotted Xylos' surface. Structures of unknown origin, their purpose long forgotten, but they created a perfect killing field. He was done running. The jungle fell silent. Even the usual chittering of the nocturnal fauna ceased. Kalen felt a familiar prickle along his spine. She was close now. A soft rustling came from overhead, barely perceptible. He didn't look up. Most humans instinctively glance upward when they sense danger from above, a fatal mistake with someone like Nyx. The records he'd accessed described her preferred method, death from above, silent and swift. Kalen remained motionless, his weathered face betraying nothing as he focused on the reflection in a small puddle of water near his boot, just enough to see movement in the canopy, a slight disturbance of the glowing leaves. A sudden electromagnetic pulse swept through the area, one of Xylos' unpredictable storms. It would temporarily disable any advanced technology. Kalen had time to stand here deliberately, having studied the pattern of these storms. His own equipment was shielded, primitive but effective. As if on cue, a massive predator, a 6-limbed creature with luminous red eyes and razor-sharp mandibles, crashed through the underbrush nearby, startled by the electromagnetic disturbance. The beast paused, sensing both humans, confused by their unfamiliar scent. It turned toward the easier target, the one in the trees. From his peripheral vision, Kalen saw Nyx react with incredible speed, firing a silent dart that struck the creature in a vulnerable spot between its armored plates. The beast roared and thrashed, drawing attention away from her position, but it wouldn't die quickly. A tactical mistake, one that confirmed his suspicions. She was good, but not as familiar with Xylos' fauna as she should be. Kalen used the distraction to slip deeper into his prepared zone, moving toward the ancient ruins where everything would end, one way or another. The night grew deeper, the forest's glow intensifying as darkness fell completely. The ruins rose before him, massive stone structures covered in vegetation, their true form barely discernible beneath centuries of jungle growth. Geometric patterns and strange symbols adorned what visible surfaces remained, glowing faintly with residual energy of unknown origin. Kalen positioned himself in a small clearing, surrounded by crumbling columns and overturned stone blocks. This was where he would make his stand. He planted his feet firmly on the ground and waited, weapon holstered. He didn't need to wait long. The massive ancient tree at the edge of the ruins provided the perfect approach for someone like Nyx. Its bioluminescent leaves shimmered in shades of green and blue, creating a kaleidoscope of shifting light that would mask movement to the untrained eye. But Kalen's eyes were anything but untrained. He tracked her ascent without turning his head, a shadow moving against shadows, displaying a grace that would have been admirable under different circumstances. She climbed with preternatural speed, ascending to a position nearly 20 meters above the ground, where the tree's massive limbs extended over the clearing. Perfect position for an ambush, exactly as he'd anticipated. Nyx settled into position, a dark silhouette against the glowing canopy. From her vantage point, she had a clear line of sight to Kalen, who appeared vulnerable in the clearing below. She remained motionless for several minutes, studying her target, evaluating the situation for any potential traps. Kalen stood unnaturally still, seemingly exposed. The stance of a man who had either given up or was supremely confident. To Nyx, both possibilities warranted caution. What she couldn't know was that Kalen wasn't just waiting for her attack. He was waiting for something else entirely. Minutes stretched into a half hour as predator and prey engaged in their silent standoff. Finally, with deliberate precision, Nyx unsheathed her weapon of choice, a vibroblade that emitted no light but could slice through armor and bone with equal ease. She adjusted her position minutely, coiling her muscles for the perfect strike. In one fluid motion, she launched herself from the branch, plummeting toward Kalen with deadly intent, the vibroblade extended before her. Kalen waited until the last possible moment, when most men would have already died, before he moved. A slight pivot, a quarter turn of his body. Nyx's blade missed his vital organs by millimeters, slicing through the outer layer of his reinforced jacket. In the same motion, he grabbed her wrist, using her momentum against her, and activated a hidden mechanism in his boot. A localized electromagnetic pulse, different from the planet's natural storms, disabled the vibroblade instantly. Their bodies collided, and he spun her around, locking her in a restraining hold that immobilized both arms. She struggled with surprising strength, but his grip was unbreakable, the result of cybernetic enhancements carefully disguised to appear natural. "I've been expecting you, Nyx," he said, his voice low and controlled. "But I'm not the only one." He released one arm just long enough to reach into his pocket and produce a small metallic object the size of a thumbnail. He held it before her eyes, a tracking beacon of advanced design. "I found this attached to your ship when you landed. Removed it 3 days ago." His tone remained conversational, as if they were old acquaintances. "Military grade. Not corporate. Not from your guild, either." Nyx froze, her eyes, a startling violet hue that marked her as genetically modified, narrowed in disbelief. "You're lying," she hissed, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "Am I?" Kalen loosened his grip just enough to reach for a small display unit at his belt. He activated it with a thumb press, revealing a map of their immediate surroundings. 7 red dots approached their position from different directions. "They'll be here in less than 5 minutes. Whoever sent them wants both of us. Dead or alive, I can't say. But I doubt they're planning a welcoming party." Nyx's expression shifted from disbelief to cold calculation. "Why warn me? Why not just leave me for them?" A grim smile crossed Kalen's weathered face. "Because you and I appear to have a common enemy. And right now, I'd rather have the legendary Nyx fighting with me than against me." Before she could respond, the distant sound of repulsor engines broke the jungle's ambience. Tactical assault vehicles moving through terrain where such technology should struggle to function. "Your call," Kalen said, releasing her completely and stepping back. Fight me, and we both die. Fight with me. He let the implication hang in the air. Nyx retrieved her deactivated vibroblade, her eyes never leaving Kalen's. After a moment's hesitation, she reached into her boot and withdrew a second, smaller blade, flipping it in her hand to offer him the hilt. "If you betray me," she said with deadly calm, "I'll ensure your death last days." Kalen accepted the weapon with a nod. "I'd expect nothing less." They moved quickly to the edge of the ruins, where fallen columns created a natural defensive position. The repulsor engines grew louder, and shafts of artificial light began to cut through the jungle canopy. 8 heavily armed operatives, Nyx observed, her enhanced vision penetrating the darkness. Military formation. Yes, 7 assault rifles. Neural disruptors. They're not taking chances. Corporeal security forces, Kalen confirmed grimly. There. Axiom Corporation's elite wetwork team. Nyx's eyes narrowed. Axiom? They're my client. We're your client, Kalen corrected. Clearly, they've decided to tie up loose ends. The first of the assault team appeared at the edge of the clearing, heavily armored in matte black combat suits with facial shields that concealed their identities. They moved with the synchronized precision of those who had killed together many times before. "Let them spread out," Kalen whispered. "The ruins interfere with their comms. They'll have to rely on visual contact." Nyx nodded almost imperceptibly. They waited as the squad divided into pairs, advancing cautiously toward the center of the ruins. What followed was a brutal demonstration of why both Kalen and Nyx were legends in their respective fields. They moved in perfect counterpoint, as if they had trained together for years rather than having been mortal enemies minutes before. Kalen struck first, emerging from behind a fallen column to drag one soldier into the shadows. A quick, efficient strike to the neural cluster at the base of the skull. The man was dead before he could alert his partner. Simultaneously, Nyx descended upon the second soldier, her reactivated vibroblade slicing through the weak point in his armor at the neck joint. No sound, no warning for the others. They melted back into the ruins as the remaining 6 operatives noticed their missing comrades. The squad leader signaled for a tighter formation, exactly what Kalen had anticipated. "The central chamber," he murmured to Nyx, indicating a partially collapsed structure 20 meters away. "Bottleneck." She understood immediately. They retreated strategically, leaving subtle signs of passage, just enough to be followed, but not so obvious as to suggest a trap. The assault team pursued cautiously but inexorably, funneling toward the ancient chamber with its single entrance. As they approached, Kalen activated a small device he'd positioned earlier, a localized electromagnetic pulse combined with a flashbang effect. The resulting chaos gave Kalen and Nyx their opportunity. They attacked from opposite sides, exploiting the soldiers' temporary blindness and disabled weapons. The fight was short, brutal, and definitive. When it ended, only one member of the assault team remained alive, the squad leader, now disarmed and restrained against a stone pillar. "Who sent you?" Kalen demanded, his voice hard. The man laughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "You're both already dead. The whole planet's locked down. Axioms brought in their entire security division." Nyx pressed her blade against the man's throat. "Why the change of contract? I was hired to bring him in alive." "Plans change," the soldier replied. "Director Vega wants the crystal and confirmation that both of you are eliminated. No witnesses, no loose ends." Kalen exchanged a significant look with Nyx. "Vega herself is involved? This goes higher than I thought." The soldier smiled grimly. "Higher than either of you could imagine." Before they could extract more information, the man's eyes rolled back, and his body convulsed violently. "A fail-safe implant. Suicide protocol activated remotely." "Dead end," Nyx said flatly as the body went limp. "Not quite." Kalen searched the man's tactical gear, retrieving a secure comm unit. "We have their frequencies now, and maybe he accessed the device's memory." "Yes." Their deployment pattern. At least a dozen more teams planet-side, concentrated around the spaceport and major ruins. They retreated deeper into the complex, finding temporary shelter in what appeared to be an ancient ceremonial chamber. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with the same phosphorescent light as the jungle vegetation. Nyx kept her distance, weapon ready, but not pointed directly at Kalen. Professional courtesy between two predators in an uneasy truce. "I think it's time you told me what's on that crystal that's worth bringing in a small army," she said, her violet eyes unwavering. Kalen was silent for a moment, weighing his options. Finally, he reached up to his collar and pressed a specific sequence on what appeared to be a decorative fastener. A small section of skin near his collarbone opened, synthetic dermis revealing a hidden compartment beneath. He removed a crystal the size of his thumbnail, its surface swirling with iridescent patterns. "Project Lazarus," he said, holding it up. "Axiom's blackest operation. They've been experimenting with the ruins on Xylos and 6 other planets. The technology here isn't just ancient, it's transformative. They found a way to use it to rewrite neural patterns. Mind control on a fundamental level." Nyx's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed her interest. And why would a loyal Axiom operative suddenly develop a conscience? They tested it on a civilian population, an entire mining colony on Ceres 9, over 30,000 people. His voice remained steady, but cold fury burned behind his eyes. They wanted to create the perfect workforce, docile, tireless, unquestioning. Instead, they created something else. The process was flawed. The subjects became something not entirely human anymore. Nyx's eyes narrowed, and rather than report this to the Galactic Council, you stole the evidence and ran. The Council is compromised. 3 of the 5 senior adjudicators are on Axiom's payroll. He pocketed the crystal again. "I needed leverage, and time to find someone who couldn't be bought. And I was sent to retrieve you before you could." Nyx's lips curved in a humorless smile. "But now they want us both silenced. What changed for you?" Kalen asked. Why would Axiom suddenly want to eliminate their own assassin? Nyx was silent for a long moment. "My last 3 assignments were unusual. High-profile targets with connections to regulatory agencies investigating experimental technologies. I began to see a pattern." She paused. "I accessed files I shouldn't have. They must have traced the breach. So we're both dead for knowing too much." Kalen nodded toward the ruins around them. "But we have an advantage they don't expect. I've been studying these ruins for months. They're the network of underground chambers that doesn't appear on any survey. A back door off this planet." Nyx studied him, clearly weighing the likelihood of deception. "And you just happen to trust me with this information now." "Trust? No." Kalen's expression was grim. "But survival makes for strange alliances. And right now, you're the only person on this planet who isn't actively trying to kill me." A small smile touched Nyx's lips. At the moment, their temporary sanctuary suddenly reverberated with a distant explosion. The ground beneath them trembled. "They're not being subtle anymore," Kalen observed. "They must have brought in heavy artillery." "Time to move," Nyx agreed. "All business once more." Kalen led the way to the far wall of the chamber, where he activated a hidden mechanism that revealed a narrow passage descending into darkness. The stairs were worn with age, disappearing into the gloom below. "These ruins aren't just buildings," he explained as they began their descent. "They're access points to a much larger complex beneath the surface. I believe they were created by the same civilization that built the arcs in the Cygnus sector." "The Forerunners," Nyx said with a hint of awe. "I thought that was just a myth." "Most myths have a kernel of truth." Kalen activated a small light source as the passage grew darker. Axiom found something in these ruins that they've been reverse engineering for their neural rewriting technology. But they've only scratched the surface of what's down here. The passageway opened into a vast underground chamber that took both their breaths away. The ceiling soared at least 50 meters above them, supported by columns inscribed with the same glowing symbols they had seen above. In the center of the chamber stood what appeared to be a control console of some kind, its surface covered in geometric patterns that pulsed with inner light. "What is this place?" Nyx asked, her voice uncharacteristically hushed. "I believe it's a transportation hub," Kalen replied. Similar structures exist on at least 3 other planets I've identified. They form a network, instantaneous travel across vast distances. A teleportation system? That's impossible. Not teleportation exactly. More like a folding of space. Kalen approached the central console cautiously. It's taken me weeks to decipher even the basics of how it works. But I've managed to activate it once before. As they moved deeper into the chamber, hidden sensors responded to their presence. Additional lights activated, illuminating pathways and additional consoles throughout the vast space. Axiom doesn't know about this, Nix realized. If they did, they have it under heavy guard. They've found similar chambers on other worlds, but haven't connected them yet. That's what the data crystal reveals. Their attempts to weaponize this technology without understanding it. A thunderous rumble shook the chamber. More explosions from above, closer now. They're systematic, Nix observed. They'll find the entrance eventually. Kalen nodded grimly and moved to the central console. He placed his hands on specific patterns, which responded to his touch by glowing more intensely. What I haven't told you, he said, not looking up from his work, is that activating this system requires 2 operators. The Forerunners built in safeguards. One person alone cannot initiate a transfer. Nix's violet eyes narrowed suspiciously. Convenient, not convenience. Necessity. He gestured to an identical console several meters away. The system requires balance. 2 conscious minds working in harmony to establish the connection. I've studied the symbols, learned the sequence. I can guide you through it. And if this is an elaborate trap, then we both die here when Axiom's forces break through. Kalen's expression remained impassive. Your choice. Another explosion, much closer. Dust and small fragments of stone rained down from the ceiling. Nix moved to the second console, her movements fluid and decisive. Show me. Kalen talked her through the sequence. Specific symbols touched in a precise order, creating a harmonic resonance between the 2 stations. As they worked, the entire chamber came alive with energy. The floor beneath them began to glow with concentric circles of light, expanding outward from the central platform. Once activated, we'll have seconds to reach the center, Kalen explained. The transfer is instantaneous, but requires us to be within the innermost circle. The chamber shook violently. Axiom's forces had found the entrance. The sound of weapons fire echoed down the passage. Where will it take us? Nix demanded as they completed the final sequence. A similar chamber on Elysium, Kalen replied. Far from Axiom's influence in free territory. The concentric circles pulsed faster, the light intensifying. From the passage came the sound of armored boots and tactical commands. Now, Kalen shouted. They sprinted for the central platform as the first of Axiom's soldiers appeared at the chamber entrance. Weapons fire erupted, energy bolts striking the ancient stones around them. Nix moved with inhuman speed, reaching the platform first. Kalen was steps behind when a bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him violently. Nix made a split-second decision. She could leave him, ensure her own escape while he fell outside the activation radius. Instead, she lunged forward, grabbing his combat harness and hauling him onto the platform with her. The world dissolved into brilliant white light as the soldiers rushed forward, too late to stop the transfer. When reality reassembled itself, they were indeed in another chamber, similar in design but smaller and clearly long abandoned. Dust covered every surface, undisturbed for centuries until their arrival. Kalen collapsed to his knees, clutching his wounded shoulder. The energy bolt had burned through his reinforced jacket, leaving a charred and smoking hole. That was unexpected, he managed through gritted teeth. What was? Nix asked, already scanning the new chamber for threats or exits. You saving me. She shrugged, a strangely human gesture from someone so lethal. Professional courtesy. Besides, you're the only one who knows how this technology works. Pragmatic to the end. Despite the pain, a smile touched his lips. There's a medkit in my pack. As Nix treated his wound with clinical efficiency, Kalen studied their surroundings. We made it. This is the Elysium Hub. It hasn't been used in millennia, so we're safe for now. From Axiom, yes. But we've just stumbled into something much bigger than either of us realized. He winced as she applied a regenerative compound to the burned flesh. The network connecting these hubs, it spans the entire galaxy. Imagine what Axiom could do with instantaneous troop deployment, or worse, their neural rewriting technology distributed on a galactic scale. Nyx finished bandaging his shoulder and sat back on her heels. So what's your play? You can't run forever. I never planned to. Kalen reached into a hidden pocket and produced a small data transmitter. There's a resistance growing. People from inside Axiom and other corporations who've seen what I've seen. They need the evidence on this crystal, and they need to know about these transportation hubs. You're talking about open war against the most powerful corporation in the galaxy. I'm talking about stopping them before they enslave humanity on a scale never before imagined. His eyes met hers, unflinching. You've seen enough to know I'm not exaggerating. Nyx was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. I was trained to follow orders, not causes. And where has that led you? Running for your life because you asked too many questions? Kalen's voice was quiet but intense. You were genetically engineered to be the perfect assassin, but they couldn't program away your conscience entirely. Otherwise, you'd have left me behind. Something flickered in her violet eyes. Anger, perhaps, or recognition of an uncomfortable truth. What exactly are you proposing? She finally asked. Come with me. Meet the resistance. After that, you're free to walk away if you choose. Kalen struggled to his feet, testing his injured shoulder. But I think you'll find their offer more appealing than spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder for Axiom kill teams. And if I refuse, then we part ways as soon as we leave this chamber. No pursuit, no reprisals. He gestured to the ancient door at the far end of the room. But I think you're too curious to walk away now. Nyx stood, her lithe form tensed like a coiled spring. For a moment, Kalen thought she might attack him after all. Instead, she moved to the chamber's exit and examined the mechanisms. Elysium has a spaceport in the northern continent, she said, not looking back at him. We'll need new identities, transportation. I have contacts here. If we can reach the settlement at Blackwater Canyon, we'll find allies. Nyx turned, her face illuminated by the chamber's ethereal light. I'm not joining your resistance, Kalen. Not yet, but I want to see how deep this conspiracy goes. After that, we'll see. He nodded, knowing it was the best he could hope for. Fair enough. As they prepared to leave the safety of the ancient chamber, Kalen paused. Why did you take the contract to hunt me in the first place? Your reputation suggests you're selective about your targets. They told me you had stolen experimental bioweapons, that you planned to sell them to terrorists. A faint smile curved her lips. I should have been more suspicious when they insisted you be taken alive. Axiom doesn't usually care about due process. We've both been played. Yes. Her smile turned predatory, and I don't appreciate that. They emerged from the ruins into the harsh sunlight of Elysium, a frontier world of vast deserts and isolated settlements. The spaceport was a distant shimmer on the horizon, at least 2 days' journey by foot through treacherous terrain. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Nyx asked as they surveyed the barren landscape. Of what? Of whatever comes next. For both of us. Kalen nodded, his eyes on the distant horizon. The beginning of a war most people don't even know is coming. Axiom won't stop with one planet or one transportation hub. They'll keep searching, keep experimenting, and we're going to stop them. It wasn't a question. We're going to try. They began walking, 2 hunters who had become the hunted, and then somehow, improbably, allies. The crystal containing evidence of Axiom's atrocities was safely hidden, but its contents were only part of a much larger truth, one that spanned galaxies and civilizations. Behind them, the ancient ruins stood silent, guardians of secrets that had endured for millennia. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and perhaps a chance to right wrongs that stretched across the stars. Nyx glanced at her companion. This man who had been her target and was now her reluctant ally. I still might kill you when this is over. Kaylin smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. I'd be disappointed if you didn't at least consider it. They continued forward, step by step, into a future neither of them could have imagined when she had climbed that tree to strike, and he had waited below, knowing she was already the hunted.